There comes a moment in life, often quiet, often unexpected, when something inside you begins to break. On the outside, everything may look the same. You still wake up, go to work, smile when required. But beneath the surface, you feel a crack forming. A heaviness grows in your chest. Tasks that once seemed manageable feel impossible. Joy drains from the things that once sustained you. You lie awake at night, unable to explain why you feel so restless, so empty, so unbearably tired. It is as though the life you built no longer fits, as though you are living inside a costume that has become too tight. This is not a random accident. It is not a failure of willpower, nor a sign that something is fundamentally broken in you. This collapse, this silent breaking point, is inevitable. Because no matter how well we learn to play the role society demands of us, no mask can last forever. The persona, the polished version of yourself that you offer to the world, eventually begins to fracture. The cracks form because your deeper self, the one you've ignored, hidden, or silenced for years, refuses to stay buried. Carl Jung understood this better than most. He saw that what we call despair, breakdown, or collapse is often the beginning of something profound. Individuation, the process of becoming who you truly are, doesn't begin in triumph. It begins in the rubble of the false self. It begins when the persona cracks. That crack, painful as it feels, is not your destruction. It is your opening. Think of it this way. The shell must crack before the bird can hatch. The seed must split before the tree can grow. What feels like death is often birth. Your suffering is not proof that life has abandoned you. It is proof that life is demanding something greater from you, that you can no longer hide behind the masks. The roles, the illusions that once protected you but now suffocate you to be why the end of this journey. You will see your despair differently. You will see that the moments you call breakdowns are not endings, but beginnings. That the collapse is not the loss of your life, but the loss of a false life, a life that was never truly yours to begin with. Jung teaches us that transformation always begins here, in the breaking. The question is not whether you will crack, but what you will do when it happens. And so, as we begin, hold this promise. Your despair is not meaningless. Your pain is not empty. The crack within you is the doorway to your transformation. From the very beginning of our lives, we are taught to wear masks. Some are subtle, others obvious, but all are designed to help us fit into a world that demands more performance than honesty. As children, we learn quickly which parts of ourselves win approval and which parts bring rejection. We learn to smile even when we don't feel like it, to hide our anger, to swallow our fear. We build a version of ourselves that pleases our parents, our teachers, our peers, a persona that wins us safety, love, or at the very least, acceptance. As we grow older, the masks become more sophisticated. In the workplace, we wear the mask of competence, projecting control even when we are unraveling inside. In relationships, we wear the mask of harmony, pretending everything is fine while resentment builds beneath the surface. On social media, we craft a mask of happiness, posting curated moments that bear little resemblance to our lived reality. And over time, we begin to confuse the mask with who we really are. Carl Jung warned us of this danger. He called the mask the persona, the image we present to the world. It is not inherently evil. In fact, it is necessary. Without a persona, we would struggle to navigate society at all. But when we forget that it is only a mask, when we start to mistake the persona for our true self, we become trapped. We begin living a life scripted by others, shaped not by our deepest calling but by the demands of culture, family, and expectation. And here is the tragedy. A mask can protect, but it cannot breathe. Sooner or later, you realize the life you are living is not really yours. The job title you worked so hard for feels hollow. The relationship you fought to maintain feels lifeless. The identity you defend so fiercely feels strangely foreign. You may even find yourself asking, in moments of quiet honesty, whose life am I really living? Jung believed that many people spend their entire lives trapped behind the mask, never daring to confront the self beneath. But he also believed that breakdowns, crises, and moments of despair often arise precisely to shatter the mask. When you feel exhausted, when you feel like the life you've built no longer sustains you, that is the signal. The mask is cracking. The persona is no longer enough. Something deeper is demanding to be seen. This is why suffering often feels so personal, so unbearable. Because it is not just pain. It is the weight of a false life pressing down on you. Your true self is suffocating behind the mask, and it is desperate to breathe. The collapse, painful as it is not cruelty, it is mercy. It is your psyche's way of demanding authenticity. And so, the question becomes, are you willing to look beneath the mask? Are you willing to admit that the life you show the world is not the same as the life you feel within? Because only when you dare to confront this truth can the journey of individuation truly begin. At first, the mask feels useful. It wins us approval, helps us avoid conflict, and secures a sense of belonging. It brings a kind of comfort, a fragile peace. But with time, this comfort turns against us. What was once protection becomes a prison. And the walls of that prison are built not of iron or stone, but of habits, expectations, and lies we tell ourselves. You may know this prison already. It feels like waking up every day to a job that drains you, yet convincing yourself it's necessary because it pays the bills. It feels like staying in a relationship that no longer nourishes you, telling yourself it's better than being alone. It feels like filling your hours with distractions, endless scrolling, meaningless chatter, mechanical routines, anything to avoid hearing the quiet voice within that whispers. This isn't the life you were meant to live. Carl Jung saw this as one of the greatest dangers of modern life, the illusion of comfort. We trick ourselves into believing that if things are stable, predictable, familiar, then they must be good. But deep down, something feels off. Stability becomes stagnation. Predictability becomes suffocation. Familiarity becomes chains. And though you might silence the voice for a while, eventually it grows louder. The unconscious does not remain silent forever. At first, it whispers. A strange dream, a sudden wave of sadness, a restless boredom that you can't explain. If you ignore these signals, it begins to shout. Panic attacks, burnout, sudden anger at the smallest things, a heaviness that no amount of sleep can cure. These are not random symptoms. They are messages, your psyche warning you that you have traded aliveness for safety. Jung once wrote, "The unlived life is a disease from which one can die." These words strike hard because they reveal a hidden truth. What kills us slowly is not failure, not rejection, not even suffering. What kills us is the refusal to live authentically. What destroys us is the slow poison of a life unlived, a life that is comfortable but not meaningful. And yet, here lies the paradox. The moment the walls of your comfort begin to suffocate you, the moment you feel the breakdown approaching, it is not a sign that something has gone wrong. It is a sign that something is finally trying to go right. The prison is being exposed. The mask is cracking. The false peace is beginning to shatter. And though it feels terrifying, it is the beginning of freedom. Because here's the truth. No one escapes transformation without first feeling the weight of despair. No one breaks free without first recognizing the cage they've built around themselves. Your suffering is not meaningless. It is the alarm clock of the soul, the moment that forces you to awaken. And so, when life begins to feel unbearable, when the comfort you clung to begins to feel like chains, remember this: the prison was never meant to hold you forever. It was only meant to push you toward the courage of becoming who you truly are. When the mask begins to crack, when the prison of comfort starts to suffocate you, the unconscious does something remarkable. It begins to speak. Not with words, not with logic, but with symbols. It sends you images, emotions, synchronicities, fragments of a deeper language that most of us were never taught to understand. Think about your dreams. Have you ever noticed how strange they can be? You're standing in a house that feels familiar but isn't yours. You're chased by a shadowy figure you can't quite see. You meet someone long gone, yet they speak to you as if they never left. These dreams may feel random, absurd even, but Jung believed they are the psyche's way of communicating what your conscious mind refuses to hear. Dreams are the alphabet of the soul, spelling out truths we are too afraid or too blind to face directly. But the psyche doesn't only speak at night. It whispers during the day as well, in those odd coincidences that make you pause. You think of a friend you haven't spoken to in years, and the next morning they call. You're wrestling with a question you can't answer, and you stumble upon a book, a sentence, a video that seems to speak directly to your struggle. You walk past a stranger, and something in their words, their presence, strikes you with uncanny relevance. These are not accidents, Jung insisted. They are expressions of a deeper order, a hidden dialogue between the conscious and the unconscious. The modern mind scoffs at this. We are trained to dismiss such things as random chance. But Jung saw them as synchronicities, meaningful coincidences that arise when inner needs meet outer events. They are signs that the unconscious is at work, orchestrating encounters that force us to pay attention. Life itself becomes a mirror, reflecting back the truths we've ignored. And notice this. These moments often arrive when we are most lost, most broken, most in need. The unconscious seems to know when the conscious ego has reached its limits, when the mask is cracking and the prison can no longer hold. That's when the messages appear, not to comfort us, but to call us forward. Perhaps this is why you are here now, listening to these words. Not by accident, but by necessity. The psyche has its own timing, its own intelligence. And when the moment comes, it sends what you need, even if it feels mysterious, even if it unsettles you. This is the symbolic language of the psyche. It will not shout. It will not argue. But if you pay attention, if you learn to listen, it will guide you. It will reveal the path beneath the rubble of your old life. And once you recognize its voice, you will never again dismiss coincidence as just chance. You will see that life itself is speaking to you, inviting you into transformation. Jung gave a name to these mysterious alignments, these meaningful coincidences that seem to arrive at precisely the right moment. He called them synchronicities. Unlike ordinary chance, synchronicity carries weight, a strange sense of significance that makes you pause and wonder if the universe itself is conspiring to reach you. Think about a time when this has happened to you. Perhaps you were struggling with grief, and just when you felt most lost, a stranger spoke a line that pierced straight into your heart. Or you were questioning your purpose, and out of nowhere you stumbled upon a book, a film, or even a single phrase that felt like an answer whispered directly to you. These moments feel impossible to explain. They are not rational, not predictable, yet they strike with the force of inevitability. Jung believed synchronicities were not accidents, but messages from the unconscious, the soul's way of reminding us that we are part of a deeper pattern, a web of meaning far larger than we can see. When the conscious mind feels trapped, blind, or overwhelmed, synchronicity appears like a door cracked open in the dark, guiding us toward what must be faced. And notice how often they emerge during crisis. When the persona is cracking, when the prison of comfort can no longer hold, that is when synchronicities multiply. It is as though life itself refuses to let you sleepwalk any longer. It begins to tap you on the shoulder in ways you cannot ignore. The right song at the right time. The right person appearing unexpectedly. The same symbol or image repeating until you finally stop and ask, why does this keep showing up? Skeptics will tell you it's random, pure coincidence, the mind grasping for patterns where none exist. But Jung urged us to look deeper. The question is not whether these events can be measured in statistics, but why they affect us so profoundly. Why do they feel like whispers from somewhere beyond? Why do they come when we most need them, not when we are comfortable, but when we are on the edge of transformation? Perhaps the truth is this: synchronicity is the unconscious breaking through the walls of ordinary life, speaking in the only way it can, through symbols, timing, and mystery. It is the soul reminding us that we are not abandoned, that our suffering is not meaningless, that even in despair, we are being guided towards something greater. And so, when synchronicity appears, do not dismiss it. Do not shrug it off as chance. Pause. Listen. Ask yourself, what is my life trying to tell me? Because more often than not, these whispers arrive not to comfort you, but to challenge you, to point you toward the very path you've been avoiding. Synchronicity is not a trick of chance. It is the soul's way of saying, wake up. Pay attention. The time has come. Every great transformation demands a crossing, a moment when you step beyond the familiar and into the unknown. And almost always, this crossing is terrifying. Jung understood that the path to individuation, the path to becoming who you truly are, is guarded not by comfort, but by fear. Fear is the dragon that sits at the threshold. Think about your own life. You may know exactly what needs to change: the job that suffocates you, the relationship that no longer gives life, the mask you've been wearing for far too long. And yet, when you stand at the edge of change, fear rises like a storm. Your mind floods with doubts. What if I fail? What if I'm rejected? What if stepping forward only makes things worse? Fear whispers that it is safer to stay where you are, even if where you are is killing you slowly. This is the paradox of transformation. The very thing you long for is on the other side of fear, yet fear convinces you to retreat. Jung believed this was no accident. Fear is not your enemy. Fear is a test. It appears at the threshold to ensure that only those willing to face themselves can pass through. In this way, fear is not an obstacle, but an initiation. Consider the myths and stories that humanity has carried for centuries. Heroes always face dragons, monsters, or demons before they reach the treasure. These creatures are not random inventions. They symbolize the fears that guard every transformation. You cannot reach the gold without facing the fire. You cannot be reborn without first passing through the terror of death. And here is the truth most of us miss. You do not need to wait until you feel ready. Readiness never comes. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the decision to step forward in spite of it. The leap is always terrifying because it means leaving behind the comfort of the false self, the safety of the prison you know. But the prison is not life. It is death in disguise. So, when you feel fear rising, when every instinct tells you to retreat, remember, this is the sign you are close. The dragon appears only at the threshold. The fear you feel is proof that you are standing at the doorway of transformation. The leap will never feel easy. But the cost of not leaping, of staying locked in the familiar cage, is far greater. Because every day you delay, the soul grows heavier, the mask tighter, the prison smaller. Until finally, you can no longer breathe. Jung would tell you this: the leap is terrifying, yes, but it is also the only way to live. When the leap looms before us, it is natural to look around and hope for someone to guide us, someone to take our hand and carry us across. We long for a rescuer, a teacher, a lover, a friend, even fate itself, to deliver us from the weight of our despair. But Jung offered a truth both brutal and liberating. No one is coming to save you. This may sound harsh, almost cruel. After all, so much of life is built around the idea of rescue. Stories tell us of saviors who appear in the darkest hour. Religions promise redemption from beyond. Even in our personal lives, we imagine that if we just find the right partner, the right mentor, the right circumstance, everything will finally fall into place. But while others may walk beside you, none can live your transformation for you. Jung reminded us that individuation, the process of becoming whole, cannot be outsourced. It cannot be handed to you as a gift. It must be earned, endured, and embraced from within. Your pain may have been caused by others, yes. Your wounds may have been inflicted in relationships, in childhood, in a world that did not understand you. But your healing belongs to you. No one else can cross that threshold on your behalf. This realization can feel like abandonment. It can feel like standing alone in a vast wilderness with no map, no guide, and no guarantee of survival. But look closer, and you will see that this solitude is not punishment. It is initiation. Because only when you stop waiting to be saved do you finally discover the strength that has been within you all along. Think of the countless ways we delay our lives, waiting for rescue. We stay in jobs we hate, telling ourselves that eventually, opportunity will knock. We stay in relationships that suffocate us, waiting for the other person to change. We drown our days in distraction, hoping some miracle will arrive to break the cycle. And in doing so, we give away our power. We live half-lives, waiting for permission to begin. But here is the truth. No one is coming. Not because you are unloved, but because you are capable. The very act of waiting is the trap. It keeps you bound to the persona, chained to the prison, unwilling to leap. The moment you stop waiting, the moment you claim responsibility for your own becoming, the path begins to open. This is why Jung emphasized radical responsibility. Not blame, not shame, but responsibility. The willingness to say, this is my life, this is my pain, and this is my task to transform. Others may inspire you, support you, walk beside you, but no one can walk for you. The savior you are waiting for is not outside of you. It is the self within you, waiting to be born. And so, the question is not, who will save me? The question is, when will I stop waiting and begin to save myself? One of the greatest prisons is not built from iron bars or locked doors. It is built from the word normal. Society whispers from the moment you are born, be like everyone else. Do what is expected. Follow the rules. Don't stand out. Don't question. Don't stray too far. And so, we conform. We wear the masks. We play the roles. We do what is necessary to be accepted. At first, this feels safe. Normality gives us a script to follow. It tells us when to study, when to work, when to marry, when to retire. It offers the illusion of certainty, the comfort of belonging. But in truth, this comfort is the most dangerous trap of all. Because normality is not built for your soul. It is built for society's convenience. Look around. How many people do you see living lives that are truly their own? How many wake up with passion, meaning, and authenticity? Or do most live quietly resigned, filling their days with work they dislike, relationships that drain them, distractions that numb them? They smile, they nod, they post pictures of happiness, but behind the mask, they are empty. This is the prison of normality. Carl Jung warned us of this very danger. He wrote that the greatest tragedy is not that people suffer, but that they suffer without ever realizing why. They confuse the emptiness of conformity with the inevitability of life. They tell themselves, this is just how things are. But it isn't. The cracks in your life, the boredom, the discontent, the quiet despair, are not proof that you are broken. They are proof that you are alive. They are signals that your soul refuses to be silenced by society's script. And yet, here lies the paradox. Normality is powerful because it doesn't feel like a prison until it's too late. It bribes you with comfort, with approval, with stability. It whispers, don't rock the boat. Don't risk the unknown. Stay here where it's safe. But safety becomes suffocation. Stability becomes stagnation. And comfort becomes chains. The cracks are inevitable. You will feel them as restlessness, as a sense that something is missing, even if you cannot name what it is. You will feel them as dreams that disturb you, as synchronicities that unsettle you, as longings you cannot explain. These cracks are not failures. They are portals. They are the places where the light of authenticity begins to break through the walls of conformity. And so, the choice stands before you. Will you cling to the prison of normality, patching the cracks, pretending everything is fine? Or will you dare to see those cracks as openings, invitations to step beyond the life society scripted for you and into the life your soul is demanding you live? Because here is the truth: normality is not living, it is merely existing. And your task, if you choose it, is to go beyond existing, to cross the threshold into a life that is finally your own. When you begin to step beyond the prison of normality, you will encounter fear. Not the fleeting kind that comes from a loud noise or a sudden shock, but a deeper, heavier fear. The kind that rises in your chest when you realize you are leaving behind the familiar. It is the fear of stepping into the unknown, of abandoning the life that others recognize for a life that only you can claim. Most of us believe fear is proof that something is wrong. We think, if I'm afraid, I must be making a mistake. If this path terrifies me, it must be the wrong one. But Jung would tell you otherwise. He believed that fear is not an enemy, but a guardian. It is the dragon that sits at the threshold, guarding the treasure of your authentic life. Its purpose is not to stop you, but to test you, to ask, do you really want this transformation? Are you willing to leave the old behind? Think of every myth, every hero's journey told through time. The hero never strolls easily into their destiny. They face monsters, demons, shadows that terrify them. These obstacles are symbols of the same truth, that fear always stands between who you are and who you are meant to become. And the only way through is to face it. The irony is this: fear often points directly to what matters most. The thing you avoid, the risk you resist, the truth you silence. These are usually the very places where your freedom lies hidden. Fear guards the sacred. If you feel resistance, it is often a sign you are standing before the doorway that leads to your real life. But here is the trap: most retreat at this point. The fear feels overwhelming, so they turn back to the false comfort of normality. They patch the cracks, put the mask back on, and convince themselves it wasn't the right time. Yet the cracks always return. The fear never leaves, because it is not meant to vanish. It is meant to be crossed. This is why Jung insisted that individuation requires courage. Not the absence of fear, but the willingness to face it. Courage is the act of walking forward even as your knees shake, even as your voice trembles, even as your mind screams at you to run. Courage is not waiting until fear disappears. It is choosing to move despite it. When fear rises, do not run. Do not treat it as proof that you are weak or unworthy. Instead, recognize it for what it is: a guardian at the gate. It is there to show you that you are standing at the threshold of something sacred. On the other side of that fear lies your freedom, your authenticity, your real life. Fear is not the end of the journey. It is the beginning of it. And once you learn to face it, you will see that the dragon was never your enemy. It was your initiation. We have walked through the cracks in the mask, the prison of comfort, the whispers of the unconscious, the strange guidance of synchronicity, the terror of the leap, the loneliness of responsibility, the suffocation of normality, and the test of fear. All of it leads here to a choice, because in the end, no philosophy, no teacher, no book, not even Jung himself can make the decision for you. Life will always bring you to a threshold, but it will never push you across. That step is yours, and it is always taken in the same way: alone, trembling, uncertain, yet compelled by something deep within you that refuses to stay buried. So the question is not whether you will face despair. You already have. The question is not whether fear will rise. It always does. The question is this: will you retreat into the false safety of the mask, the prison, the normal life that suffocates you? Or will you cross the threshold into the unknown, trusting that what lies ahead is greater than what you leave behind? This choice will not be made once. It will be made again and again. Every day you are asked, will you live as the persona or as the self? Will you silence the whispers of your soul or will you listen? Will you let fear guard the doorway forever, or will you walk through it and claim your life? Carl Jung believed that the soul is relentless. It will not stop pressing, not stop sending dreams, synchronicities, cracks, and fears until you respond. Because individuation, becoming who you truly are, is not optional. It is the task of every human being. Ignore it, and you will suffer. Embrace it, and you will suffer too. But it will be the suffering that transforms you, the suffering that births you into wholeness. And so, as you stand at your own threshold, remember this: you are not broken. You are not lost. You are being called. The collapse you feel is not the end. It is the beginning. Your despair is not meaningless. It is the doorway. Your fear is not the enemy. It is the guardian. The choice is yours. Stay in the false life, and the cracks will widen until the mask shatters anyway. Or step into the real life, the life that is waiting for you beneath the ruins of the old. I leave you with this challenge. Stop waiting to be saved. Stop pretending you are not called. Look your fear in the eye and take the leap. Because this, right here, right now, is the moment you decide whether you will continue existing or finally begin to live.